Rain tapped the tin roof like a soft drum, steady and kind, and I lay there listening, hoping the sound would wash the ache away. It was my birthday. In other years I woke to laughter, warm arms around my shoulders, the smell of eggs and cinnamon from a kitchen I did not have to clean. I reached for my phone on the nightstand and saw a blank screen. No message from Kojo. No call from Kwame. I told myself they were busy, still asleep, or out planning something sweet. I tried to believe it. On the table sat the small cake I had baked the night before, still wrapped, sugar dust shining in the gray light. I touched the ribbon and pulled my hand back as if it could burn. The room felt too quiet. I boiled water and made tea I did not want. I cut a slice of cake I did not eat. I opened the curtains and watched the street wake up, bright umbrellas moving like flowers in the rain. Every minute I checked my phone again. Still nothing. The silence grew heavy, like a blanket pulled over my face. Memories floated up to fight it, a candlelit song, a kiss on the cheek, a joke about getting younger. I smiled without feeling it. I told myself stories to keep my heart soft. Maybe there would be a knock at the door. Maybe they were almost here. But under those thoughts, a small crack opened, and I felt it widen with every hour. The hours moved like wet clothes on a line, slow and heavy, and I stayed on the couch as if the cushion could hold me up when everything else felt soft and thin. I kept the mug in my hand long after the tea went cold, blowing at the surface like a small, private breath. Every time a car passed outside I turned, hope and fear in the same quick movement, thinking it might be them, thinking maybe today would end the way it had always begun. My phone became a small, cruel clock. I checked it more times than I would admit, thumb sliding, eyes searching, seeing only the same empty screen. Not even the little messages that say nothing much. Not even a heart emoji. Each time the silence felt louder, and the house seemed to close in around me. The walls were not the solid, friendly kind. They leaned closer, soft as curtains, and pushed me into a small, sharp space where memories crowded. I remembered last year, the way their voices were distant, the way a late-night message sounded hurried and half-true. I remembered laughing it off then, saying it did not matter, that love does not keep to calendars. But the memory did not comfort me. It lined up with other small forgettings. A missed call here, a birthday passed with a shrug there. The pattern was a quiet thief. Sitting there, watching the rain make a gray skin over the world outside, a bitter truth settled in my chest like a stone. I had been making excuses for them for too long. Saying they were tired, saying life was busy, saying I understood. Each excuse had been a soft patch on a coat that had finally come apart at the seam. I felt the seam give way under the weight of 1,000 small things. The thought that I had been the one who kept pretending made my throat tight. It was not only sadness. It was a slow, bright anger, not loud or cruel but sharp enough to wake me up inside. I imagined the life I had been promising myself for years and realized I had put it on hold waiting for people who did not hold my time the same way. The room, the mug, the empty cake on the table all became small witnesses. I sat with them and let the truth wash over me. It hurt, but at the same time it cleared something away. The waiting had turned heavy, but in that heaviness something else pressed up, firm and small. I could feel a new shape of decision forming, a simple, stubborn promise that I would stop building my days around someone else showing up. If no one came, I would make the day for myself. By late afternoon I could feel the waiting like a heavy coat I had worn too long, and I stood up and took it off. I told myself no more sitting and staring at the door. If no one else would make this day feel special, I would. I went to my room and changed into my favorite Kent print dress, the one with bright yellow and deep green that always makes me stand a little taller. I slipped on sandals and tucked the little cake into a paper bag, thinking maybe I would share it with someone I had not expected. The air outside felt different from the quiet house, fresher and full of movement. I walked toward Nyamarambo, following the sound of music and voices, and with every step the tightness in my chest loosened a bit. The market was alive. Stalls were bright with tomatoes and mangoes, baskets of maize, bolts of cloth folded like colorful waves. Someone laughed and a child chased a chicken, and the smell of frying plantain rose like a memory of better mornings. I let the colors wash over me, like I was painting myself new. I stopped at a flower stall where old women sat on low stools, their hands quick and sure as they tied little bundles of green and white. One of them looked up at me and her face was a map of many years, but her eyes were quick and kind. She was Mama Abney, and when I asked how much for the flowers she pointed to a faded pile of blossoms and said, "Choose, child." I reached out and my fingers brushed soft petals and cool stems, and for the first time that day I felt a laugh bubble up in my chest. I bought a bunch of bright yellow flowers because yellow felt like sun even when the sky was gray. Mama Abney wrapped them in brown paper and tied them with string, and as she handed them to me she smiled and said, "Child, joy is something you make, not something you wait for." Her voice was small but it landed like a stone in quiet water and the circles of meaning spread out. I walked through the market holding the flowers like a small victory, and people smiled at me as if the flowers made me glow. I treated myself to fried plantain and cold hibiscus tea at a small cafe by a pond, and I watched the water catch the late light and thought about how many things I had waited for that might have waited for me instead. I took a photo and sent it to my cousin with the simple line, "Happy birthday to me, from me." It felt bold and a little naughty and it felt true. The rest of the afternoon moved easy. I let the music guide me, I bought a new scarf because why not, and I talked to a vendor about the best way to cook maize. By the time I turned toward home the weight that had pressed on me all morning was lighter, folded away like the coat I had taken off. I held the flowers close and walked like someone who had found a small new rule: when people do not come, you bring the party yourself. I walked slowly through the market, letting everything wash over me, the bright cloths that folded like waves, the piles of fruit that smelled sweet and honest, the vendors calling out in voices that bounced against the tin roofs. People moved around me with steady purpose and small kindnesses. A boy handed a woman change with a grin, a woman laughed at a joke and the sound carried like a bell. I touched a bolt of blue fabric and it felt cool under my fingers. I stopped for fried plantain wrapped in paper that steamed warm into my palms, and the first bite was hot and soft and exactly what I did not know I needed. I sipped cold hibiscus tea that tasted like summer and the sharp red made the world feel clear. After that I found a small cafe by Lake Mahatsi, a quiet place with wooden chairs and a view of water that held the sky like a mirror. I sat with my cake in a paper bag beside my knees and the flowers tucked on my lap, and I watched the light move across the lake in slow bright steps. The ripples looked like tiny songs and I felt something shift in me, a little loosened knot of worry that let go and floated away. I took a selfie while laughing at myself because I looked both silly and happy, and I sent it to my cousin with the words, "Happy birthday to me, from me." Typing those words felt like a small truth finally said out loud. For once I was not pretending the day was what I wanted it to be later. I had made this day what I wanted it to be now. I talked to the woman who ran the cafe about how she made the tea and she told me a story about her son that made me smile and cry at the same time. A child at the next table dropped a spoon and the woman picked it up and gave him a wink. I walked back through the market with new shoes that fit like a promise and a scarf I had not planned to buy but could not leave behind. People greeted me, and when I returned a smile, the smile seemed bigger than before, as if my own small joy was catching. I thought about the mornings I had spent waiting and how heavy that had felt, and I felt the lightness again, like a small bird hopping from branch to branch inside my chest. I realized that I could fill my day with things that made me feel seen, even if the people I loved were not there yet. The sun slid down behind the hills and the sky turned to soft colors. I walked home holding the flowers close and the cake clutched like a small bright secret, and I felt, truly, free. The sky had turned the color of old paper when I walked up the path, the flowers warm under my arm like a small, steady heat, and for a moment the house looked like an old friend waiting as usual. I put the key in, pushed the door, and the quiet inside folded around me the same way it had in the morning. I set the cake on the table, smoothed the paper bag like a small promise, then my phone buzzed on the counter with a sound that made my heart jump, an unknown number, a single video file. For a second I stood very still, feeling the little wooden floorboard under my feet, the smell of rain and fried plantain still clinging to me, and something wrote itself across my face that I could not hide, hope and a little fear braided together. I picked it up like it might be fragile and I read the sender's number twice as if that might tell me what to expect. My thumb moved before my head did and then stopped. I had a sudden thought of all the times I had clicked and been disappointed, the times I had read a short message and felt my chest fold inward. I thought of how the morning had felt long and empty and how I had spent the afternoon filling it, making meaning out of small things. I wanted this to be what I had been waiting for, but I also wanted to protect myself from the soft, familiar sting of being let down. My finger hovered over the play icon and I could feel the room holding its breath with me. In that small pause a film of memory crossed my mind, Kwame's wide grin when he was little, Kojo humming while washing dishes, the way the house had felt full once, how quickly things could tilt. I told myself to breathe slowly, to be steady, and the air tasted faintly of sugar from the cake I had baked. There was a tiny hum from outside, a car drifting past, but inside my ear the buzz seemed louder, as if it came from inside my ribs. I pressed play. For a heartbeat the screen was black, and then Kwame's face filled it, closer than I expected, wet-eyed and shaking just enough that I knew the video was recorded right then, not later. Behind him, the corners of the frame were pale and humming with the soft beep of machines I did not yet understand. The sound caught in my throat like a bird. My hands went cold around the phone. The cake on the table blurred at the edge of my vision. Time pulled tight, like cloth around a bundle, and everything narrowed to the small square of light in my palm and the two faces slowly appearing on the screen. When I pressed play, Kwame filled the screen, close enough that I could see the lines at the corner of his eyes and the small scar from when he fell off his bike as a boy. His face was wet with tears that caught the phone light and made bright paths down his cheeks. He looked smaller than he is now, as if the worry had pulled him inward. Behind him the room was pale and quiet, a bed with white sheets, a stand with a bag and thin tubes, and my husband lying very still, looking thin and different in a way that made the breath leave my body. Kojo was wrapped in bandages around his head and arm, his skin the color of someone who has been away from sun for too long. The beep of a machine hummed from the video like a steady, strange music. Kwame's voice cracked when he spoke. He said, "Mama, I am sorry. We could not be there today. We should have told you sooner." His words rumbled in my bones and then blurred because I could not hold them steady. I felt my hands go cold and my knees wanted to buckle. Images ran like a quick film behind my eyes, Kojo laughing over a pot of stew, Kwame running into the house with schoolbooks, mornings that had felt ordinary and strong. Now the ordinary had a sharp edge. The video moved closer to Kojo and he opened his eyes, barely, like someone asking if he was still home. He mouthed words I could not hear at first and then I heard, "We love you," whispered small and raw. The sound broke something open inside me that was not just sadness. It was a fierce mix of relief and guilt and a raw, grateful ache that made my breath come fast. I had spent the day making myself small comforts and pretending that waiting was fine. Now I saw what was true. They had been holding something I did not know about, carrying a burden in silence. I wanted to yell, to laugh, to cry until my face hurt. I wanted to tell them not to hide pain from me. The phone trembled in my hand and the room around me tilted. I thumbed the screen and saw the little hospital details, a nurse's shoe at the edge of the frame, a folded paper cup, a clipboard with names I did not need to read. I felt a sudden, sharp need to be there, to touch a hand, to hear a breath in the same room. At the same time I understood why they had sent the video. They had wanted me to feel them close even when they could not be. Kwame's lips moved again, quieter this time, saying please forgive us. The plea landed like a small stone into the center of my chest and made ripples I could not stop. My throat tightened, but not only with anger. It was mostly with a fierce, steady love that pulled me up and forward. I put the phone to my ear and called the number on the video before I had thought about it. My voice was rough, and when someone answered from the other side I heard the hospital sounds and a tired hello. I told them I was coming. The video ended with both of them whispering, "We love you," through tears. My own tears fell, but not from loneliness, this time, from understanding. I realized how quickly life can shift, and how much I'd taken for granted. That night, sitting by Kojo's hospital bed, I held Kwame's hand and promised myself that no birthday, no moment, would be wasted waiting again. I watched Kojo sleep with the soft light of the monitor painting his face, and the steady beeps became a strange, small music that kept time for us. Families in hospitals always seem to move in quiet rhythms, soft footsteps, whispered questions, the rustle of paper. Kwame slept on a chair beside the bed, his head nodding once or twice like someone too tired to fight. I thought about all the years I had measured love by gifts and by arrivals, by the times people showed up exactly when I expected them to. Now those measurements felt thin and small. What mattered was the hand in mine and the way their voices broke when they said they were sorry. I forgave them then and there, not because the forgetting was excused, but because suffering makes small mistakes look different. I learned something that felt both sad and strong: life can change in an instant, and holding someone matters more than keeping score. When I left the hospital that night the sky was dark and the town quiet, but inside me a light had started. I would not wait for others to make my days full of meaning. I would be the one to show up for myself, and to show up for them when they needed me most. From now on, every small celebration would be a promise to myself, to laugh louder, choose joy, and keep loving openly always.